Hello, Nick. How are you?
Hello, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Long time no see, my friend. You're a vampire, brother. You don't go aging much, do you?
I don't know. I don't know. When I look in the mirror yeah, no, like I think I do.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean,
I can certainly tell the difference.
we've known each other for a long, long time now, and the debut album, Outlands, come out 12 years ago. I can't get my head around that. That's insane, isn't it?
Feels like it feels it feels like a long time ago, but it also feels like not such a long time ago in other ways as well. It feels like enough time now that I can listen to that record with fresh ears, and enjoy it for how it's meant to be enjoyed.
Hmm.
I find myself going, "Oh, wow, those bits work." I was never sure if they worked or they didn't, and like just little things that you might kind of agonize over when you're in the throes of recording, that you then later go, what was I worried about?
Yeah.
It all worked, you know?
Man, it is an outstanding record still to this day, and even a listener like myself, and I've always been a fan of Deep Sea Arcade, so it's not a casual listen. But I put that record on the other day. We found some copies to send to the club, and I put my OG copy on the other day, which is worth a little small fortune on the internet, I hear. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's outstanding, start to finish. It doesn't stop. It's like there's side one, which feels like something, and side two something else. And I
Yeah.
don't know, did you do that on purpose? That real separation in sides back then? I feel like even producer wise, there's something going on there.
I feel like I have to give some credit to our manager and A&R Andy Castle at the time,
Legend.
because he was really helpful in the sense of helping us kind of curate where the songs sat together.
Right.
And we knew as well, I think. But I remember just thinking about him the other day and how great that relationship was that we had together. I really trusted his opinion. And yeah, he did a really, really, really good job. He was like, "Oh, how about this going here or that going there?" And we disagree on some suggestions, and then we'd agree on others. But I think that collaboration really worked for that record. So yeah, I just want to give him a little shout out,
Yeah.
actually.
Such a
Yeah.
such a such a legend too. Such a great human, Andy. I haven't
Oh
spoken to him
yeah.
in a long time.
I
But
bumped
yeah,
into him today, yeah. But yeah, such a legend.
so what do you hear when you're listening back? I know because I know you're very critical of yourself back then, at least. I don't know what you like now, but what do you hear when you hear this record now?
I really was impressed actually on that kind of fresh listen, on the kind of the bridge of the rock and roll, where it get really rocks out, but then it kind of gets into songs like Together. Like Together
Oh,
comes out of nowhere for me. I was like, whoa, it's like
yeah.
this cinematic, like it's sort of like got a kind of Mancini-esque kind of vibe to it almost. And you're like, what? Wow. How did that happen? So yeah, so I had moments like that where like I don't remember it rocking out this hard, and then also going into these kind of ambient cinematic score kind of sort of sections as well. And that was a really pleasant surprise. I was like, yeah, we were nailing something there.
Yeah, it's funny because you were part of a bit of a trend then, I suppose, weren't you? You were part of that real psych comeback that, sort of was, I suppose, led by Tame Impala somewhat. Not that you sound like Tame Impala, it's very much a deep sea arcade thing. There's more than psych going on there. There's a whole lot of stuff. From the moment we all heard, I remember, I was a manager back then and I managed Hungry Kids of Hungry, Ballpark Music, who all really looked up to Deep Sea Arcade as their idols almost. I hope I'm not over speaking that. But
That is that is a huge compliment.
oh man, you guys were the forerunners of our like indie sized heroes, so to speak. From the moment Don't Be Sorry came out, that was the case. And was Don't Be Sorry your first thing?
Don't be so. I believe, yeah, that was the first EP. Don't be sorry, and then I think it was Lonely in Your Arms after that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Don't Be Sorry EP had a few things that had like circles, and I think it had all the kids on it as well.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a few things. We did that with Simon Berkelman, Berkfinger. That was a great experience as well. And Don't Be Sorry was just like 4 to the floor drum groove and track to tape. And suddenly, just by kind of emphasizing that rhythm, it sounded so much larger in the recording than we'd ever expected it to. And it just had that. I think we'd gone in trying to record all the kids. That was the one that we were trying to nail. And then Don't Be Sorry ended up being the best one, you know, in the studio. So it's kind of like things like that just happen. Hey.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, my own relationship with Don't Be Sorry is still intact. You know, it comes up and it's got this beautiful vintage flavor that I don't know. You've been told this so much over the last 12 years, I'm sure, but it's got this beautiful vintage flavor that is very, very much your own. And I assume that's on purpose. I know that there's a lot of serendipitous things that happen in the studio, but you and Nic, God bless him, you and Nic really nailed that vintage sound that is more than just that. It's yours, didn't you? Like,
Yeah, wow. Thank you. Thank you
and
so
I
much.
and I assume, you know, I remember the album taking a little bit of time to come out, and I assume that's what it was. I assume it's just trying to nail everything perfectly.
There's just so many songs as well. So it was really about culling songs and deciding which ones fit together for that record. Because strangely enough, as collaborators, and I think that Nic and I would and about so many things together. And that was a special part of our collaboration, was being, you know, perfectionists together. But it didn't stop us from writing a lot of music. It's just that we didn't sort of put it out, you know, like it was like we were really selective about what we ended up wanting to show people. But that didn't mean we didn't write prolifically. That's where the time came. It's like it was really about the selection of the songs and the story that we were trying to sort of tell at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a combination of just getting things done, you know, like we might have something that we were really, really, really loving at the time, but we just didn't have it finished, or there was some, you know, part missing in some way. So those are the most finished, best represented songs I think we had at that particular time. Yeah.
Side note, will you reveal some of these at some point? These other ones?
I think there are, like, there's lots of little bits and pieces of collaborations that we did. Stuff that, of course, after Nic passed away, I had to, you know, go back into and listen to and just be like, wow, you know, just because it was a special moment. I mean, recordings are like photographs. They capture a piece of time, you know, piece of time that you're sitting there with your friend, laughing, joking, being silly, probably, you know, doing something. I think we're smoking heaps of weed as well. But yeah, like I get taken back so vividly to that time when I listen to them, and I'm like, wow, that was cool. Why didn't we continue with this idea? And it was just because, you know, we got distracted by something else.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do some retrospective digging of some of that material that we did together and finish things off and release them. And I will it won't be so long between the next album. I think I'll really try and get on to the next album after the one that we're releasing in 2025.
Right. Was there a new one? Is there?
There's a new one that I'm working on with Jay Watson from Pond.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him a bunch of demos late last year, and yeah, he was like, let's record it. Let's do it remotely. Send me your demos and I'll record the drums and the bass and in my studio in Perth, and, you know, we'll get it done. So that's been really cool because I'm someone who ums and ers and, you know, can procrastinate with things. And he's someone who's like really, like, he's incredibly fast. So it's lucky that I met him, actually.
Okay. And there's not too much compromise going on there for you?
No, not at all. I think because I'd gotten the songs to a point where they were really finished, really demoed to death, and then sent them to him, and he was like, yeah, this is cool. I can just put my drums and bass over this, bit of guitar, bit of keys, sometimes backing vocals, and then he'll send it back and it feels done. And it feels like also a good collaboration because he gets the production stuff too. So he, I don't need to be like, oh, I think we need to do a kind of like a slap delay on the vocals with a bit of this and run it through this or that. It just comes back that way because he knows what the sound is and sort of, yeah. All of his production choices feel like they're on point,
He gets it. Yeah, you're on the same page.
Yeah.
Comes from the same time, so to speak.
Absolutely. And a similar a similar bunch of influences as well, I think. Like, things will come back and I'll be like, oh wow, that's like you've made the piano, you put a chorus on it that sounds like Supertramp or something like that. And you're like, of course you have, because you love Supertramp.
I love that there's just those unashamed references. I just love it,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's another part of production. It's like you're not trying to copy something, but production sort of is also like, film stock. It sort of like takes you back to a time, or it can tell a story about the references and the placement of where your influences are coming from.
Absolutely.
So he's a master of that.
And do you find yourself, I often read, I'm a Beatles fan, I'm a McCartney fan, and you often hear these interviews with Paul where he talks about, writing some new songs, and he'll look over his shoulder to see what John would say about that particular song because he can still hear his voice. I know Nick's only been gone a couple of years now, but have you found yourself sort of, having him there?
Oh, without a doubt, like all the time. I think that thing of writing music with someone since you were literally like 12 or something.
Wow.
Like I remember we were obsessed with Silverchair.
Right.
I was more upfront about it. Like, I think Nick was a little bit like, but we were both obsessed. And I remember we were like just wanting to write songs and having loved Frog Stomp and Freak Show and stuff when we were really young. And then from then it was just like on and on, like just getting new influences, whether they be Radiohead or Rage Against the Machine. It was always just like, we're always like trying to kind of like, like write something and bring it to the table. And so all of those, whenever I sit down and I'm thinking about those references and the love of music that we shared, and also just like things that we sort of learnt together, I think, as well, in terms of songwriting and the way we put together songs. There's lots of just little things that we would always talk about, especially in regards to chords and voicings of chords, because we didn't like to really sort of rely on music theory too much when writing music. And it was kind of like, often the chords, we'd actually take out, parts of the chords and allow, the voicings of the harmonies to be in those chords and stuff like that. Just like decisions that we made that I will always return to, as if he was in the room, as if we were like going, oh, let's do it like that. And like if I'm going to put down a bass line on a synthesizer, it's always feels like I'm just trying to do a Nick Weaver bass line. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's impossible for me not to. It's like,
yeah,
I feel like he's living here with me. And I have to say, a day doesn't go past where he's not in my dreams as well. Cause I miss him. I miss him so much.
Of course. I mean, when he passed, there was such a chorus of love, and I didn't hear from you though. That must have absolutely ruined you.
It ruined me. It was just devastating. For a long time. I was just so deeply, traumatized. Actually,
yeah, I'm sure.
I was just traumatized. I couldn't really speak about it to anybody. I just sort of, I think that sometimes when things are really, really, really affect you, they make you so deeply sad that it's, yeah, you kind of go inside yourself and you sort of, it takes a while to
Yeah,
be able to even process it. Like I
absolutely.
didn't even feel like doing music for like, he died in 2021. I didn't want to touch a musical instrument probably until 2023.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's,
Well,
honestly, it was that it affected me so incredibly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think I've ever had anything like that before.
it's a soulmate, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, bravo to
yeah,
you. It's very brave for you to be even chatting today, let alone embracing Outlands again. And I mean, how are you finding that just having Outlands kind of present again, isn't it? It's like it's buzzing again, you know. It's
yeah.
how are you feeling
I,
about
it's nice. I feel great about it because like I say, it's just you can I can hear it now and I can enjoy it as if I didn't write it or it had nothing to do with it.
it? Yeah,
And that's the greatest gift of all
that's beautiful.
because you suddenly like hear an idea that you didn't even know you'd made almost.
Yeah.
Like,
Did you
you
hear
know,
any, did you hear anything on a recent listen back that something that I'm
oh
sure
yeah.
I'm sure Nick Weaver would know. I'm sure this is I usually ask this question in every interview, but I'm sure Nick Weaver would know this moment. But what's the moment for you where you have a little cheer to yourself and be like, "Yep,
I think there is a nice transition that goes into from Outlands, the title track, into See No Right. There's a really nice little transitional moment. And I think that songs like Ride and Together and the ones that are and Ambulance and If the Devil Won't Take You, yeah. Like those ones that weren't singles as well, like you just kind
yeah,
of go, oh yeah, like wow, that's a you just oh wow, that song exists, and you
that's
just you know
where a band really shines, isn't it?"
yeah.
It's where a
So
band
yeah,
really shines. I never saw you as a duo back then. I missed the whole Nick and Nick duo. I just thought you were a band. So that's pretty new
yeah,
information for me. Yeah.
yeah. It was always us. I think that with all bands, you always have like or two driving members, or possibly one driving member. I was lucky to have Nick there. And God, it reminded me as well because I went on tour recently and I remembered how he was always the guy that would like go, all right, guys, let's get out of bed. We got to get to an airport. I suddenly like found myself like an hour late to sound check. And I was like, if Nick, if Nick was here,
Yeah, holy shit, I miss Nick. Yeah, yeah. There's those little things that you wouldn't write in his eulogy. You missed him until going on tour again. Oh man. Well, it's a beautiful thing. We've got
yeah,
Outlands.
yeah,
It's a beautiful
yeah,
thing.
we do.
I've had Waxx Lyrical for 5 years now, and Outlands has been at the top of my list, believe it or not, for that entire time, either as an exclusive or as a record of the month. And I'm stoked to be doing it.
Oh,
What
thank you.
how do you address the newcomers to this? So, there's a good handful of people in my club who are cheering. They've been wanting this record for a long time, but there are other
Oh,
people who've never heard it before. How will you
amazing.
how will you introduce yourself, Nick?
How will I introduce myself?
Yeah.
To those guys.
To the newbies, yeah.
Oh, I think like cinematic psychedelic rock and roll with a little bit of an electronic twist, I reckon.
Yeah.
Um,
Cinematic.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
I spotted a bit of like Tarantino-esque sort of, the riffs that Tarantino would fancy in a couple of these songs now.
For sure. Like
Yeah.
Lone Drums.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, little guitar bends here and there. I don't know the technical terms that you would
Yeah,
call, but yeah, the little,
kind of. We always called those bits the heroin bits.
the heroin bits. Yeah,
Kind of like the John Travolta in that
yeah,
open in his car driving to pick up Uma Thurman.
yeah. Well, the Lonely in Your Arms video clip, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
And do you live in Sydney? I know you're in New Zealand now, but do you live in Sydney still?
I do. I
Yeah,
do. I live in the West Sydney.
right. And do you have
And
a vinyl collection at home?
sorry,
Do you have
I
a
do.
vinyl collection?
I have a really decent vinyl collection
Do
actually
you?
that I kind of procured over the last 3 years. I just started like something switched, and I was like, oh my god, I love vinyl, and
Yeah,
when that happens, it just never stops.
yeah,
Like it just doesn't stop, as you know, as I can see in the back of you behind you.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like I bought a couple of turntables, and so that I can do I like to DJ to myself.
Oh, yeah,
Uh, yeah, I love doing a little transition or two,
yeah, yeah,
and and yeah, so I bought that, and then I just live so close to Roselle Markets, which is a really great little hub in Sydney for buying records.
yeah. It is.
And I'm just up there every weekend and just like collecting, you know, just yeah. And today I was in a record store actually, in Auckland.
Yeah,
So yeah. And I love I really love all the greats. Like I love getting, like anything new, like I'll always buy new records, but I do also love to get like beats records, like beats compilation records. Really
yeah,
love getting just like like instrumental drumming records
yeah,
and and any kind of soundtrack, and then trying to do just get the. It's also a process for me for my writing as well.
yeah,
I actually love putting on a break and coming
yeah.
up with a melody over the
Right.
top of the break, and then sort of building a song that way too. That's something I really enjoy. So yeah, I think that vinyl has helped me in my writing endeavors too.
Mm, mm,
So
mm.
yeah,
That's interesting, isn't it?
yeah.
And, with a sizable vinyl collection and knowing you and knowing what you would consume or guessing what you would consume, and I imagine that's a lot as a pure like intake. What do you find yourself reaching for time and time again after years?
Like I do find myself putting on America
Oh yeah.
um a lot, and also I really like those KTEL compilations. The KTEL compilations where they were like the kind of first music sync guys. They
Yeah.
do compilations for TV and advertising, but they put on great soundtracks. I've got one that's called Good Morning. It's a compilation of songs that sort of soundtrack Good Morning America, and it's kind of like all those classic beautiful songs like San Francisco, and I always find myself just reaching for that in the morning. I do love a good compilation record because I love curation. So that's one thing. But then yeah, I do also love, like I often find myself reaching for Neil Young or America or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Mm-hmm.
I got quite a lot of, 90s dance and hip hop breaks, like Chemical Brothers. Obviously, I got all the Prodigy stuff. I do really like listening to that. And then I got a lot of stuff that DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill put together, like things like that. I
Yeah.
will often find myself throwing on. What else? Yeah, like quite a lot of French house. I like French house.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I'll put on and Danish, that Todd Terje, Inspector Norse.
Yeah.
Uh, I
True.
love chucking that on.
Mm.
Yeah, it goes on and on, but often you'll just find yourself. I think the thing is the what as a collector you do find yourself just at someone's market stall, and you just pick something up and you're like, I'm gonna just put that at the back and find it in like 2 months,
Yes. Yes,
And you
I
always
understand.
enjoy that. That's a special moment when you reach for something and it's like behind something. You're like, oh,
There it is.
yeah, I remember
Yeah,
bike. You
absolutely. I
know,
love it. I love it.
it's Squeeze's greatest hits or something like that.
Well, what about when the new Deep Sea Arcade record comes out? You do these little residencies somewhere and in a little room with a turntable in the middle, and it's like Nic McKenzie curation night or something, like that. That's a thing. With
Yeah,
a
I would
with
love
a
to.
with a curation brain like that, you've got to be playlisting or doing something, you have to.
I'd love to. I'd
You
love
have
to
to
do.
you have to share it.
I will. I will. Do you do things like that? Do you guys do little segments with people?
Oh, I can do. I'm up for anything. I mean, I was DJing vinyl for a little while up a little bar up the road, and I haven't done that in a little while, but that always felt like a nice time, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to you had to make a dance floor happen, so you can't be too creative, but it might be nice just to also I'm not a, I'm not a celebrity. You know, someone like you, Nic McKenzie, Deep Sea Arcade, right in the middle, you know.
Oh no, no. I think I'd turn off and people be like, "Who the hell's that guy?"
No, no.
But
Very
I'd love to do it.
It's something about vinyl, DJing with vinyl. It's like it's a proper choice, isn't it? It's a proper
Yeah,
selection.
really, really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, my friend, you're looking as well as ever. You look great, man. You've
you
done
too.
it. Yeah, it's incredible to see you after all this time, and I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
And grateful for Outlands. Thank you for making that 12 years ago. And yeah, can keep going, man. I can't wait to hear what's next from you.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Awesome. I'll talk to you real soon.
Talk to you soon.